Go on. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Sisu, Road to Revenge, stylized Si2U, is the highly anticipated 2025 sequel to the cult hit Sisu, 2022, written and directed by Jalmari Helander. Originating from Finland, this war-action thriller continues the legend of Atami Korpi, known as the man who refuses to die, portrayed once again by Jorma Tommila. The film amplifies the personal stakes, shifting from its predecessor's brutal gold heist war storyline to a deeply emotional, blood-soaked tale of vengeance, grief, and redemption. In the sequel, Korpi returns to the ruins of his childhood home, the very place where his family was mercilessly slaughtered during the war. Rather than leave it behind, he physically dismantles the house, piece by piece, loads it onto a truck, and resolves to reconstruct it somewhere safe, in memory of his lost loved ones. But peace eludes him. Igor Dragunov, the Red Army commander responsible for his family's murder, resurfaces with lethal intent. What follows is a relentless, brutal cross-country pursuit. The sequel promises eye-popping action sequences, a high-octane chase, and visceral one-on-one combat. It's a fight to the death born not just from tactical necessity, but from a deeply personal vendetta. The tone, according to Helander, draws from a wide palette of influences: Indiana Jones-style adventure, James Bond's bravado, and even the slapstick physicality of Buster Keaton. Cinematographer Mika Erasma, who also worked on the first Sisu, returns to capture the brutal landscapes, emotional close-ups, and heart-stopping action. With a reported budget of around $12.2 million, the sequel is among the more expensive Finnish productions. At its core, the film explores themes of determination, loss, and reconstruction. The Finnish term Sisu is deeply embedded in the narrative, not just a word for grit, but a lived philosophy embodied by Atami. His mission to rebuild his house is symbolic. It stands for his attempt to rebuild his shattered life, his identity, and the memory of his family. Revenge is portrayed as deeply personal. It's not about power or geopolitics, it's a man versus the man who destroyed his entire world. The cross-country chase is more than a physical journey, it's an emotional odyssey. There's also a strong reflection on what survival costs. Atami survived insurmountable odds in the first film, but surviving war doesn't mean being unscarred. The sequel seems to probe what victory truly means. Is rebuilding enough? Or does vengeance demand a steeper price? Director Helander has suggested that this film could well be a conclusion for Atami's arc, though he hasn't ruled out the possibility of further sequels. The story kicks off in 1946, a year after World War II, in Soviet-occupied Karelia. Atami Korpi returns to the site of his former home, now a ruin. Haunted by memories and driven by grief, he does something extraordinary. He physically tears down every part of his house, sorting through the wreckage, salvaging what he can, and loads it all onto a truck. His goal is as symbolic as it is practical. He plans to rebuild the house elsewhere, creating a living memorial to his family. But his solitude and reconstruction project don't go unnoticed. Igor Dragunov, the very man who orchestrated the slaughter of Korpi's family, emerges from the shadows. Dragunov is not just any enemy, he is determined, obsessed, and hell-bent on finishing what he had started. The collision between these two men sets up a brutal, high-stakes chase across harsh landscapes, from snowy forests to muddy roads and industrial terrain. As the pursuit intensifies, Atami must marshal all of his legendary resilience. He isn't just fighting for his life, but for the memory of his past, and for a future that might finally let him heal. The action is relentless: inventive gunfights, clever traps, physical confrontations, and surprising set pieces that demand not just brute strength but cunning. Throughout, the film doesn't shy away from emotional weight. Atami's face, often silent, expressive, becomes his emotional register. Director Helander and actor Tommila lean into minimal dialogue. Instead, much is conveyed through gestures, glances, and raw physicality. The trailer teases this emotional layer, showing Atami confronting his past, realizing that rebuilding his home isn't just about wood and nails, it's about restoring a part of his soul. Jorma Tommila returns as Atami Korpi, the stoic, unbreakable former commando. Stephen Lang plays Igor Dragunov, the ruthless Red Army commander whose vendetta against Korpi is deeply personal. Richard Brake joins as a KGB officer, who plays a significant role in sending Dragunov after Atami. Other supporting cast include Soviet soldiers, border guards, and various characters encountered during the chase, though the narrative remains tight around the core trio. Filming for Road to Revenge took place primarily in Estonia, particularly in the industrial and rugged terrain of Idaviru County. This is a shift from the first Sisu, which was filmed in Lapland, Finland. The move seems to have been driven by both practical and financial reasons, including regional financing support from the Viru Film Fund. Principal photography wrapped by late 2024. Director Jalmari Helander returned to helm the sequel, writing the screenplay himself, ensuring continuity in his vision. The collaboration with cinematographer Mika Orasma also continued, maintaining visual coherence with the first film's raw, brutal, naturalistic style. Helander has said that this time, he deliberately leaned into a more emotional storyline, choosing to elevate the final scene, where Korpi dismantles and rebuilds his home, to a symbolic level, something he is particularly proud of. The official trailer for Road to Revenge dropped on August 27, 2025. It is more than just a preview of action, it emphasizes Atami's emotional journey. The trailer shows him driving into Soviet territory, visibly burdened by memories, and unleashing violence when he learns about Dragunov's return. The visuals promise a blend of high-stakes action and personal drama, with haunting images of the dismantled house, snowy roads, and explosive confrontations. The film premiered at Fantastic Fest on September 21, 2025. In Finland, the theatrical release is on October 22, 2025, distributed by SF Film Finland. In the United States, it is scheduled for a wide release on November 21, 2025, under Screen Gems via Sony Pictures. According to box office data, the Finnish box office opening weekend pulled in about $755,000, though global figures are still unfolding. Early critical reception has leaned very positive. The sequel has achieved a 95% score on Rotten Tomatoes, reflecting strong approval for its action, emotional depth, and character work. At Fantastic Fest, critics praised the film's relentless pace and called it one of the best action sequels in recent years, comparing some of its energy to Mad Max, Fury Road and John Wick, Chapter 4. As for the future, Helander has expressed that while Road to Revenge feels like a solid conclusion to Atami Korpi's journey, he hasn't completely ruled out the possibility of a third installment. Jorma Tommila has said he would return if invited, as long as he still has the physical strength to do justice to the character's intense demands. The sequel is not just about action, it's deeply rooted in memory and reconstruction. Atami's decision to dismantle his childhood home and rebuild it somewhere else is both a literal and metaphorical act. He is bearing the weight of his past but refusing to be broken by it. That act becomes a central motif of the film. The house is more than wood, it is memory, identity, and the possibility of healing. His fight against Dragunov is not just a physical showdown, but a confrontation with his trauma. Revenge here is not an abstract notion, it's personal, and it's painful. The film asks, what does it mean to rebuild when everything you loved was destroyed? And at what cost, emotionally and morally? The concept of Sisu, Finnish grit, is woven through this narrative. Atami's unwavering determination isn't merely physical toughness, it's a moral, psychological force. He does not give up, not even when confronted with seemingly insurmountable loss. There's also a commentary on war's aftermath. The sequel doesn't just glorify action, it humanizes the cost of survival. The violence is real, but so too is the grief. The chase across hostile terrain mirrors an internal struggle. Atami is exhuming his past, confronting it, and attempting to rebuild. Jorma Tommila is central to the film's emotional gravity. His performance is notable for restraint, he expresses complex emotions with minimal dialogue, relying on expression, movement, and presence. Stephen Lang, as Igor Dragunov, brings a cold, menacing intensity. His character is not just a military figure, but a representation of Atami's pain and loss. Richard Brake, in his role as a KGB officer, adds to the political tension, making Dragunov's pursuit not just personal but part of a larger Soviet machination. The film is set in post-World War II Europe, specifically in Soviet-occupied Karelia, which adds historical resonance. The first Sisu took place during the Lapland War, where Atami's fight was against retreating Nazis. The sequel shifts focus to the Red Army, a powerful adversary tied to Finland's complicated wartime history. This setting allows the film to explore not just action, but the lingering effect of war on individuals and families. By returning to Karelia, Atami is literally stepping into a geopolitical gray zone, a land scarred by conflict, occupation, and loss. His mission to rebuild his house is also an act of reclaiming a piece of that contested landscape, of establishing a place where memory can survive. The marketing for Road to Revenge has leaned heavily on the emotional stakes. The trailer foregrounds Atami's grief, his determination, and the personal nature of his mission. The action is promised to be as brutal and inventive as in the first film, but this time with more heart. Fans of the original Sisu, which gained a cult following for its mix of war violence and mythic stoicism, are likely to be drawn to this sequel's promise of more visceral spectacle plus deeper character work. In summary, Sisu, Road to Revenge is shaping up to be a powerful, emotionally charged action sequel. It retains the raw, relentless energy of the first film, but enriches it with personal stakes, deeper grief, and a symbolically resonant mission. With Helander back at the helm, Tomla's committed performance, and the high-stakes pursuit of vengeance against a deadly foe, this sequel promises to be both a visceral thrill ride and a poignant exploration of memory, loss, and the cost of rebuilding. Atami's journey is no longer just about survival, it's about honoring the past, reclaiming his identity, and proving that some things are worth tearing down and rebuilding, no matter how many times you're knocked down. As Atami presses forward on his journey, the intensity of the pursuit escalates. Dragunov's forces, now fully aware of his movements, have set up a network of patrols and ambushes. The narrative shifts into a series of tense sequences in which every step is fraught with danger. Snow-laden forests become a labyrinth of potential threats. The crunch of his boots on frozen ground could betray his position at any moment. The filmmakers employ long tracking shots, emphasizing isolation and the constant presence of danger. Shadows move among the trees, creating the sense that Atami is being watched, followed, and assessed by a calculating enemy. In one particularly gripping scene, Atami crosses a narrow ridge overlooking a frozen valley. From his vantage point, he observes a squad of Dragunov's soldiers coordinating their search. He whispers under his breath, "Patience. They'll come to me." Here, the narrative underscores his strategic brilliance. He is not merely reacting but anticipating, turning the environment into a weapon and setting the stage for a cinematic display of ingenuity. He rigs a simple but deadly trap using ice, rope, and weighted timber. When the squad crosses his path, the trap is sprung, ice gives way under their feet, a heavy log swings into their formation, and chaos ensues. The action is choreographed to be thrilling and believable, demonstrating Atami's expertise while amplifying suspense. Dialogue during these sequences is minimal, but the few exchanges are loaded with tension. A subordinate soldier, panicked after the trap is triggered, exclaims, "He's too clever. How can one man survive against us?" Dragunov's response is calm, almost sinister, "He survives because he has purpose. And we have none but orders." This interaction emphasizes the thematic contrast between Atami's moral determination and Dragunov's cold pragmatism, highlighting the psychological depth of the narrative even amidst explosive action. Throughout these mid-journey sequences, Atami's internal monologue is subtly conveyed, often in short, quiet reflections during moments of movement or rest. "Every step, every breath. I carry them with me," he murmurs while pausing to survey the snowy expanse. These lines provide insight into his motivations, illustrating that each tactical decision is informed by grief, memory, and unwavering moral resolve. The audience is continually reminded that his strength is both physical and emotional, rooted in the principle that surviving is inseparable from honoring the past. A key element in these sequences is the use of terrain to shape conflict. Atami utilizes frozen lakes, dense underbrush, and ruined buildings to outmaneuver pursuers. In one extended sequence, he navigates a partially collapsed barn, turning debris into defensive barricades while using the shadows to conceal his movement. When soldiers burst into the structure, he emerges unexpectedly, neutralizing threats with precise strikes and improvised weaponry. The camera alternates between wide shots, capturing the choreography of the space, and close-ups, emphasizing the intensity of struggle and the determination on his face. Sound design, creaking timber, thudding footsteps, and the distant howl of wind, heightens tension, immersing viewers fully in the danger and immediacy of the moment. Supporting characters intersect with these confrontations, each encounter adding complexity and moral dimension to the story. A sympathetic local hunter offers shelter and information about enemy patrols, speaking in hushed tones, "I cannot fight for you, but I can show you where they will walk next." These interactions highlight community, trust, and interdependence amidst chaos. Conversely, encounters with collaborators or mercenaries hired by Dragunov test Atami's principles, presenting ethical dilemmas that emphasize his integrity. He chooses restraint when possible, neutralizing threats without unnecessary cruelty, underscoring the thematic tension between revenge and justice. The pursuit sequences are intercut with brief but potent flashbacks, reinforcing emotional stakes. Atami recalls the laughter of his siblings, the warmth of his family's hearth, and the brutal moment of their deaths. These memories are not passive, they inform his decisions, drive his relentless resolve, and shape his moral compass. Every action, from setting traps to engaging enemies, carries the weight of memory, transforming physical confrontations into emotionally resonant sequences. The narrative ensures that action never exists in isolation but is always intertwined with character development and thematic depth. Cinematic techniques heighten the drama during these confrontations. The use of natural lighting emphasizes contrast, the bright, reflective snow juxtaposes with the deep shadows of forested areas, creating tension and visual texture. Handheld camera work during combat sequences conveys immediacy and immersion, allowing the audience to feel each movement, struggle, and narrow escape. Strategic slow-motion sequences highlight critical moments of skill and decision-making, emphasizing both the ingenuity and emotional stakes of Atami's actions. The combination of these visual choices ensures that the audience experiences both excitement and empathy simultaneously. As the narrative progresses toward its final sequences, tension reaches its peak. Atami anticipates a large-scale pursuit, setting multiple traps, coordinating environmental hazards, and using his knowledge of terrain to create a lethal gauntlet for his pursuers. Each ambush, narrow escape, and confrontation builds momentum, accelerating the narrative toward the climactic showdown with Dragunov. The film balances action with reflection, allowing brief moments of respite where Atami contemplates the cost of his journey, the sacrifices made, and the enduring significance of his moral mission. These reflective beats deepen the audience's engagement, ensuring that the action is meaningful rather than purely spectacle. The interplay of strategy, combat, and psychological tension demonstrates the meticulous planning of both protagonist and antagonist. Dragunov, ever watchful, adapts to Atami's maneuvers, heightening suspense. Their conflict becomes a cerebral duel as much as a physical one, with traps, countermeasures, and tactical anticipation shaping every encounter. The narrative emphasizes the intelligence and adaptability of both characters, reinforcing the thematic exploration of skill, determination, and moral purpose. The epilogue opens with soft morning light spilling across the Finnish valley where Atami has rebuilt his family's home. The camera pans slowly across the snow-covered ground, lingering on small details, footprints leading to the house, freshly stacked firewood, and the salvaged planks integrated seamlessly into the structure. Every element is a testament to both endurance and memory, a physical manifestation of Atami's Sisu, the Finnish concept of unbreakable courage and perseverance. Atami stands at the doorway, taking a quiet moment to reflect. His breath forms clouds in the cold air as he surveys the valley. The surrounding mountains, once menacing in their isolation, now appear protective, framing the rebuilt home like a sanctuary. He gently touches the doorframe, a simple yet profound gesture connecting him to the family he lost and the life he has reclaimed. The audience feels the weight of every plank he transported, every battle he fought, and every calculated risk he took. The culmination of his journey is both physical and spiritual. Aero and the local tracker arrive to check the perimeter and ensure no remaining threats linger. Their brief exchange is understated, filled with respect and understanding. Though words are sparse, their camaraderie reflects the bonds forged through adversity. This moment underscores a recurring theme: survival often depends on alliances, trust, and mutual respect. Aero nods silently to Atami, acknowledging both the danger they have survived and the victory they have achieved. The camera cuts to a series of flashbacks interwoven with the present, showing glimpses of Atami's family, his parents tending the garden, his sister laughing in the snow, shared meals by the fireplace. These memories blend seamlessly with the rebuilt house, illustrating that while physical structures can be destroyed and rebuilt, the emotional and spiritual essence of family endures. The film emphasizes that vengeance alone is insufficient. True restoration comes from honoring memory and preserving what was once lost. A quiet yet powerful sequence shows Atami placing a final plank over the doorway, effectively completing the reconstruction. He pauses, then leans against the doorframe, exhaling slowly. The snow begins to fall gently around him, muffling distant sounds and creating a serene atmosphere. This scene acts as a metaphorical and literal closure. Atami has not only physically rebuilt his home but also mentally reconciled his trauma. The camera lingers on his face, capturing a mixture of grief, relief, and quiet pride. The narrative then shifts to a montage of the surrounding environment, illustrating that life continues beyond human struggles. Wildlife emerges from the forests, birds take flight, deer cautiously traverse the snow, and rivers begin to thaw under the morning sun. The cinematography underscores the cyclical nature of life, suggesting that survival, resilience, and hope persist even after chaos and destruction. Supporting characters receive brief but meaningful closure. Aero, having proven his loyalty and skill, prepares to leave the valley, leaving Atami with a quiet acknowledgement of shared struggle and respect. Minor antagonists, those mercenaries who survived the earlier confrontations, are shown retreating into the wilderness, emphasizing that while some threats endure, they no longer dictate Atami's destiny. The film emphasizes the emotional and thematic core of Sisu. Throughout the story, Atami demonstrates physical endurance, strategic intelligence, and mental fortitude. In the epilogue, this perseverance culminates in restoration, rather than mere destruction. The audience witnesses the triumph of human will over adversity, not through domination or vengeance alone, but through deliberate, meaningful action that honors the past while building for the future. Atami's final reflection is quiet and understated. He kneels at a small, makeshift memorial outside the house, placing a piece of timber carved with his family's initials. This act bridges memory and legacy, symbolizing that while he cannot undo the past, he can preserve it in a tangible form. Snow falls softly, partially covering the memorial, a visual metaphor for the delicate balance between remembrance and moving forward. The closing sequences linger on Atami walking inside the home, running his hands along the walls, and examining the furniture reconstructed from salvaged materials. The camera captures every detail of craftsmanship and care, emphasizing that this is not merely a house but a repository of memory and resilience. The reconstructed home, surrounded by the vast, rugged landscape, becomes a symbol of human endurance in the face of relentless challenges. Finally, the film zooms out to a wide panoramic shot, Atami's home nestled in the valley, snow-capped mountains framing the scene, and a pale sun rising in the distance. The sound design merges the quiet wind, distant wildlife, and soft orchestral music, creating a sense of closure, reflection, and hope. The audience is left with the impression that while the battles are over, the spirit of perseverance, Sisu, continues. In the last moments, Atami gazes at the horizon, his expression a combination of stoic determination and quiet peace. The camera holds this frame, emphasizing that the journey was as much about emotional survival and moral integrity as it was about physical combat. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a resonant sense of closure, accomplishment, and reflection on the themes of resilience, memory, and the human spirit. The marketing strategy for Sisu 2, Road to Revenge was carefully orchestrated to generate excitement among fans of the original film while also appealing to international audiences unfamiliar with the first installment. Recognizing the growing global interest in high-quality action cinema with strong character narratives, the production team collaborated with marketing agencies to craft campaigns that emphasize the film's unique blend of visceral action, emotional depth, and post-war historical context. Trailers, posters, social media teasers, and behind-the-scenes content were released strategically, building momentum leading up to the film's premiere. The official trailer, which debuted on August 27, 2025, quickly garnered attention on digital platforms for its breathtaking action sequences, cinematic scope, and compelling portrayal of Tommy Corpy. The trailer's editing balanced rapid cuts of combat and chase sequences with quieter, emotional moments, effectively showcasing the film's dual appeal, adrenaline-pumping thrills and poignant human storytelling. Audience reactions to the trailer were overwhelmingly positive, with viewers highlighting the intensity of the action, the authenticity of the performances, and the promise of a story that transcended conventional revenge thrillers. Posters and promotional imagery emphasized the film's central themes of resilience, vengeance, and personal reconstruction. Marketing materials frequently featured Tommy Corpy in iconic poses, surrounded by the desolate landscapes of post-war Finland, conveying both the stakes of his journey and the scale of the narrative. The use of stark contrasts in color grading, bright flashes of fire and sunlight against cold, muted backgrounds, reinforced the visual identity of the film and highlighted its dual focus on destruction and renewal. Social media campaigns leveraged character profiles, interactive content, and sneak peeks of action sequences to engage a wide range of audiences, from hardcore fans of the original Sisu to new viewers drawn in by the promise of intense cinematic spectacle. The marketing team also emphasized the international aspects of the film, highlighting Stephen Lang and Richard Brake as part of the cast to enhance the film's global appeal, while maintaining the uniquely Finnish tone and setting that distinguished the story. The film's premiere strategy was similarly designed to maximize both domestic and international impact. Sisu 2 had its world premiere in Helsinki on October 21, 2025, a high-profile event that included appearances by the cast, director, and production team. This premiere generated significant media coverage in Finland, drawing attention not only from local film critics but also from international press interested in European action cinema. Following the premiere, the film was released in Finland on October 22, 2025, with subsequent releases in key international markets, including the United States on November 21, 2025. Screen Gems, the distributor responsible for worldwide releases, coordinated a staggered rollout to build word-of-mouth momentum and ensure optimal audience engagement across different regions. The strategic timing of these releases reflected an understanding of global audience behavior, particularly for high-impact action films, which benefit from concentrated marketing efforts and anticipation-building campaigns. Engagement with audiences extended beyond traditional trailers and posters. Behind-the-scenes featurettes, cast interviews, and director commentaries were shared through digital channels, offering fans insights into the production process, the challenges of filming in extreme conditions, and the creative decisions that shaped the film's narrative and action sequences. These materials emphasize the human element of the production, highlighting the dedication and skill required to bring such an ambitious project to life. For example, interviews with Jorma Tomula and the stunt team detailed the physical preparation and safety precautions involved in executing complex action sequences on icy terrains, providing a sense of realism and authenticity that resonated with viewers. This approach allowed audiences to feel connected to the filmmaking process, enhancing engagement and fostering anticipation for the film's release. International film festivals and special screenings were also leveraged to raise the film's profile and generate critical buzz. Select festival showings prior to the U.S. release provided an opportunity for early reviews and word-of-mouth promotion, while simultaneously introducing Sisu 2 to cinephiles and critics who value innovative action filmmaking. Marketing narratives highlighted the film as a continuation of the critically acclaimed original, emphasizing both its escalation in scale and its commitment to character-driven storytelling. This dual approach, appealing to existing fans while attracting new viewers through universal themes and spectacular action, proved effective in building a global audience, setting the stage for both box office success and long-term cultural impact. Audience engagement was further amplified by interactive campaigns on social media platforms, where fans could explore character backstories, vote on favorite sequences, and engage in discussions about the historical context of the film. The production team also released curated clips showcasing the ingenuity of Atami Corpi's strategies and stunts, reinforcing the film's identity as both an action spectacle and a thoughtful exploration of heroism, survival, and moral complexity. This multi-layered marketing approach created a sense of anticipation and ownership among fans, fostering a community of viewers eager to experience the narrative firsthand and discuss its implications, themes, and cinematic achievements. The marketing and release strategy for Sisu 2, Road to Revenge exemplifies a modern approach to global film promotion, blending traditional advertising with digital engagement, international festival exposure, and strategic audience targeting. By emphasizing the unique qualities of the film, the realistic action, the emotional stakes, the historical authenticity, and the strong performances, the team successfully positioned the sequel as a must-see cinematic event. This comprehensive approach ensured that the film's release resonated with audiences worldwide, setting the stage for critical acclaim and commercial success while reinforcing the distinctive identity of the Sisu franchise in the landscape of contemporary action cinema. Sisu, Road to Revenge is the 2025 sequel to the Finnish cult action film Sisu, 2022, written and directed by Jalmari Helander. Picking up the story of Atami Corpi, a man famed for surviving near-impossible situations during World War II, the sequel delves deeper into the psychological and emotional ramifications of his past while providing the intense, adrenaline-fueled action the original was celebrated for. The narrative, themes, and cinematic style all serve to reinforce the legend of Corpi, highlighting the Finnish concept of Sisu, which encompasses grit, perseverance, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. The film opens in 1946, in the immediate aftermath of World War II, in Soviet-occupied Karelia. Atami Corpi, portrayed by Jorma Tommila, returns to the remnants of his childhood home. This site is central to the sequel's emotional arc. It represents the place where Corpi's family was brutally murdered by Red Army soldiers, marking the beginning of his lifelong struggle with loss and vengeance. Corpi is no longer the naive young man. The trauma of war has hardened him, but he is driven by a desire to restore a part of what was stolen from him. Rather than leave the ruins behind, he meticulously dismantles the house, carefully salvaging materials with which he intends to reconstruct it somewhere safe. This act is symbolic on multiple levels. It reflects both a literal rebuilding and a psychological attempt to reconcile with a devastating past. The narrative tension escalates when Igor Dragunov, the Red Army commander responsible for Corpi's family's death, resurfaces. Dragunov, played with chilling intensity by Stephen Lang, embodies relentless menace and obsession, representing not only a personal threat but also a lingering shadow of geopolitical conflict. The story then unfolds into a brutal, cross-country pursuit where Corpi's physical prowess, ingenuity, and emotional resilience are constantly tested. Unlike the first film, which focused heavily on wartime exploits and survival, this sequel intertwines these high-stakes sequences with Corpi's personal mission of emotional closure, making the action deeply meaningful. As the story progresses, Corpi encounters numerous obstacles, both human and environmental. The terrains he traverses are diverse: snow-covered forests, rugged hills, muddy roads, and war-ravaged villages. Each environment poses strategic challenges, and the film leverages these landscapes to create a heightened sense of tension and realism. Helander's direction ensures that these sequences are not mere spectacle. Each action scene serves a narrative purpose, illustrating Corpi's resourcefulness, determination, and ingenuity. Physical confrontations, improvised traps, and vehicle-based stunts demonstrate not only raw strength but also tactical intelligence, reinforcing the idea of Corpi as a man defined by his resilience and adaptability. The emotional core of the film is Corpi's relationship with his past, particularly the loss of his family. Throughout the sequel, he is haunted by memories of their final moments, represented through flashbacks and visual motifs embedded within the cinematography. These memories are often juxtaposed against moments of extreme violence and chaos, highlighting the tension between Corpy's inner grief and the external threats he faces. The reconstruction of his house becomes a metaphor for rebuilding a life shattered by trauma and loss, providing a poignant contrast to the relentless pursuit of vengeance that dominates much of the plot. The cast delivers strong performances that elevate the narrative beyond standard action fare. Jorma Tommila returns as a Tommy Corpy, delivering a performance that is both physically demanding and emotionally nuanced. His portrayal relies heavily on body language, subtle expressions, and controlled dialogue, effectively conveying Corpy's internal struggles. Stephen Lang as Igor Dragunov provides a foil that is equally compelling. His character is driven by vengeance and duty, creating a high-stakes antagonist whose presence amplifies the film's tension. Richard Brake, portraying a KGB officer, adds layers to the narrative by representing the bureaucratic and political machinery behind Dragunov's pursuit, highlighting the broader stakes of Corpy's personal mission. Secondary characters, including Soviet soldiers and local villagers, contribute to the realism of the world, making Corpy's journey feel grounded in a tangible historical and cultural context. Production of Sisu, Road to Revenge expanded in scale compared to its predecessor. Principal photography was conducted primarily in Estonia, particularly in the industrial and rugged terrains of Ida-Viru County, with additional sequences filmed in Lapland for continuity with the first film. The choice of filming locations reflects a commitment to authentic and visually striking environments. Cinematographer Mika Orasma returns, maintaining a consistent visual style characterized by stark realism, dynamic framing, and the use of natural lighting. The practical effects, combined with carefully choreographed stunt work, enhance the visceral impact of the action sequences. Director Jalmari Helander emphasized emotional storytelling, balancing high-octane action with moments of quiet introspection that deepen audience engagement with Corpy's character. The sequel's budget, reportedly around $12.2 million, represents a significant increase from the original film. This investment allowed for larger-scale stunts, expanded set pieces, and the incorporation of international talent, reflecting the ambition of the production to reach a global audience while retaining its Finnish cultural identity. The production design emphasizes historical accuracy in costume, weaponry, and set construction, grounding the story in post-war Europe and enhancing the authenticity of the film's atmosphere. Thematically, Road to Revenge explores perseverance, grief, and moral ambiguity. Corpy's pursuit of vengeance is tempered by moments of reflection, raising questions about the costs of retribution and the potential for redemption. The film underscores that survival in itself is insufficient. True resilience involves confronting emotional scars and rebuilding a life despite loss. The concept of Sisu permeates every aspect of the narrative, encapsulating not only physical endurance but also emotional fortitude and moral courage. The film's marketing campaign has highlighted both its intense action sequences and its emotional depth. Trailers released in mid-2025 showcased a Tommy dismantling his family home, tense confrontations with Dragunov, and elaborate chase sequences across varied terrain. The campaign strategically emphasized the personal stakes, ensuring that audiences understand the narrative is as much about emotional resolution as it is about spectacle. This positioning has contributed to strong pre-release anticipation, with critics and fans alike praising the promise of a sequel that maintains the intensity of the first film while offering deeper character exploration. Sisu, Road to Revenge premiered at Fantastic Fest in September 2025 and subsequently released in Finland on October 22, 2025, distributed by SF Film Finland. Its US release followed on November 21, 2025, under the Screen Gems banner via Sony Pictures. Early box office indicators suggest strong domestic performance, reflecting the first film's cult following, and global releases are expected to build on this momentum. Critical reception has been overwhelmingly positive, with reviewers highlighting the film's blend of relentless action and nuanced character work, noting its success in expanding the scope and emotional depth of the franchise. The film also engages with historical and cultural context. Set in post-war Karelia, it explores the consequences of Soviet occupation and the lingering impact of wartime trauma. These historical references are integrated seamlessly into the narrative, allowing for both educational resonance and dramatic tension. Corpy's personal struggle reflects broader questions about the human cost of war, the nature of memory, and the moral complexities faced by those who survive conflict. Beyond its narrative and thematic content, the sequel represents an evolution in Hellander's directorial approach. By combining the kinetic energy of the first film with an enhanced focus on character-driven storytelling, Road to Revenge demonstrates how action cinema can simultaneously entertain and engage emotionally. The meticulous choreography of combat, vehicle sequences, and environmental challenges reflects a careful blending of spectacle with narrative purpose. Each sequence is crafted to reinforce character, advance the plot, and heighten thematic resonance. Character development is central to the film's impact. Corpy's evolution from a wartime survivor to a man seeking to restore what was lost is mirrored by Dragunov's portrayal, which evolves from a purely menacing presence to a nuanced antagonist whose motivations, while morally indefensible, are explored in depth. This dynamic creates a layered conflict, where personal stakes are amplified by psychological and emotional complexity. Secondary characters, though fewer in number, serve to illuminate facets of Corpy's humanity, providing moments of levity, reflection, or moral contrast. The sequel's pacing balances high-intensity action with quieter interludes of emotional reflection. This rhythm allows the audience to connect with Corpy on a deeper level, understanding that the physical struggles are inseparable from the psychological journey. The narrative structure alternates between forward momentum in the chase and introspective moments centered on memory, loss, and rebuilding, creating a cinematic experience that is both thrilling and resonant. In terms of production design, significant attention was given to historical accuracy. Costumes reflect post-war attire, military uniforms, and local civilian clothing of the era. Weaponry and props were carefully sourced to match the period, while set construction emphasized realism and practicality. The dismantled house sequences were particularly challenging, requiring both artistic design and mechanical ingenuity to convey authenticity while allowing for dynamic cinematography. These sequences serve as a centerpiece of the film's thematic and visual identity. The sequel also highlights the physicality and skill of its actors. Tomala performed many stunts himself, demonstrating not only endurance but also mastery over complex fight choreography. Lang's performance required both psychological intensity and physical coordination to convey Dragunov's relentless pursuit credibly. The combination of practical effects, stunt coordination, and careful editing ensures that the action sequences feel immediate, immersive, and grounded. The conclusion of the film is both cathartic and symbolically rich. Corpy's reconstruction of his home signifies a resolution not only of the external conflict but also of his internal journey. The film closes with a visual motif of resilience, permanence, and remembrance, underscoring the thematic core of Sisu as a force for both survival and moral fortitude. This ending reinforces the idea that the film's action sequences serve a purpose beyond entertainment, they embody the protagonist's struggle for emotional and psychological integrity. In summary, Sisu, Road to Revenge builds upon the foundation laid by its predecessor, expanding both the scope and depth of the story. Its combination of intense action, emotionally charged storytelling, historical resonance, and thematic complexity establishes it as a standout in contemporary action cinema. The film demonstrates how narrative, character, and spectacle can be integrated to produce a cinematic experience that is both thrilling and meaningful. Atami Corpy's journey is emblematic of the human struggle to reclaim agency, confront past trauma, and rebuild in the face of overwhelming adversity. The sequel cements the franchise's reputation for combining kinetic action with profound emotional and moral exploration, ensuring that audiences are not only entertained but also deeply moved. The climactic confrontation begins on the edge of a frozen plateau, a vast expanse of white stretching to the horizon, broken only by jagged rocks and skeletal trees. The landscape itself becomes a character, shaping the strategy, movement, and intensity of the battle. Atami stands poised, surveying the terrain with the practiced calm of a seasoned soldier. The wind bites at his face, and snow swirls around him, a stark visual metaphor for the chaos of war and the turbulence of his own past. His breath fogs in the cold air, each exhale a reminder of mortality, endurance, and the stakes of the confrontation. Dragunov arrives with calculated precision, his figure dark against the reflective snow. He dismounts silently, exuding an aura of menace and control. Their eyes meet, and the camera lingers, emphasizing the psychological intensity of the encounter. No words are exchanged at first, tension hangs in the air like a frozen blade. The silence itself is charged, a testament to the history between them and the inevitability of the confrontation. Then, in a low, cold voice, Dragunov speaks, "Korpi, you've survived too long. The past catches up to all of us." Atami's response is quiet but unwavering, "I am not afraid of the past. I am its reckoning." The fight erupts with sudden ferocity. Unlike previous skirmishes, this battle is intimate, brutal, and relentless. Atami and Dragunov engage in close-quarters combat, each strike choreographed to reflect both skill and emotional weight. The clash of fists and improvised weapons is punctuated by sharp grunts, the crunch of snow, and the metallic echo of impact against ice and rock. Every movement is purposeful, demonstrating strategy, experience, and the physical manifestation of years of training and trauma. Atami uses the environment to his advantage, leveraging uneven terrain, jagged rocks, and loose ice to create openings against the larger and stronger Dragunov. At one moment, he feints toward a narrow ridge, drawing Dragunov's momentum into a trap, and the larger man slips, crashing into a frozen stream. The camera follows every motion in a dynamic combination of sweeping wide shots and intimate close-ups, allowing the audience to feel the tension, danger, and stakes of every maneuver. Sound design amplifies each impact, the cracking ice, the thud of bodies, the whistle of the wind, making the scene immersive and visceral. Dialogue interspersed during the fight is minimal but charged with meaning. Dragunov snarls, "You are clever, but cleverness cannot save you forever." Atami replies through gritted teeth, "Cleverness is nothing without purpose, and I have purpose." Each line reinforces the thematic stakes. Intelligence and strength are only valuable when aligned with moral and emotional resolve. The audience is reminded that this battle is not merely physical, but emblematic of the struggle between ethical determination and unrelenting cruelty. The intensity escalates as the fight moves across different environments, from the icy plateau to a partially collapsed stone cabin, each location offering both opportunity and danger. Atami improvises, using broken timber as levers, rocks as projectiles, and narrow corridors to channel Dragunov's movements. These sequences demonstrate his ingenuity, endurance, and tactical mind, highlighting that his greatest weapon is not raw strength, but resilience and the ability to turn any situation to his advantage. Intercut with the action are flashbacks of Atami's family, his mother's laughter, the warmth of the hearth, the innocence of childhood, underscoring the emotional stakes behind each strike and maneuver. These memories are not simply nostalgic, they guide his moral compass, reminding him why he fights and giving him the inner strength to endure fatigue, pain, and danger. The juxtaposition of brutal present action with tender past recollections intensifies the audience's emotional engagement, transforming a physical confrontation into a symbolic battle for justice, memory, and the affirmation of human resilience. As the battle nears its climax, both men are visibly exhausted, their movements slower but more deliberate. Atami capitalizes on a moment of overextension by Dragunov, using precise timing to deliver a decisive blow. Dragunov falls, defeated but not without resistance, and the camera lingers on his expression, a mixture of disbelief, frustration, and grudging respect. The victory is not gloating or triumphant in the conventional sense, it is solemn, earned through skill, perseverance, and moral resolve. Atami's breath is heavy, his hands bloodied, yet his eyes reflect the enduring determination that has carried him through every challenge. Following Dragunov's defeat, Atami takes a moment to survey the battlefield. The frozen plateau, scarred and battered, mirrors his own journey, a landscape of endurance, conflict, and survival. He kneels, touching the snow and reflecting on the lives lost, the sacrifices made, and the purpose that guided him. This moment of reflection underscores the film's thematic core. Victory is not merely about defeating an enemy, but about surviving with integrity, honoring the past, and continuing to act with moral clarity. The narrative then transitions into the resolution phase. Atami resumes his journey to rebuild his family home, carrying salvaged materials across the harsh terrain. The reconstruction is painstaking, emphasizing the symbolic and emotional significance of each act, laying timber, securing beams, and restoring a hearth. The audience witnesses the slow emergence of a restored home, a visual representation of healing, renewal, and the continuation of life despite trauma. The cinematography captures both the physical labor and the emotional weight of this process, with lingering shots of Atami at work, the snow melting in patches as spring approaches, and light filtering through windows to signify hope and continuity. Supporting characters, including villagers and allies who assisted him earlier, reappear briefly, acknowledging Atami's perseverance and moral fortitude. Their interactions, though understated, reinforce the communal and ethical dimensions of the narrative, the idea that resilience and justice are relational, extending beyond the individual to touch others affected by history, violence, and survival. The closing moments are meditative. Atami stands before the rebuilt home, taking in the structure that represents both memory and continuity. He whispers a final tribute to his family: "We endure, we rebuild, we remember." The camera slowly pans upward, capturing the vast northern sky, snow-covered fields, and distant mountains, emphasizing the permanence of nature and the endurance of the human spirit. The film concludes not with fanfare but with solemn affirmation, that perseverance, moral clarity, and inner strength, the essence of Sisu, endure, even in the aftermath of destruction. Atami steps outside the rebuilt home as the first rays of sunlight warm the valley. He pauses, letting the light illuminate the snow-laden landscape. The camera focuses on subtle environmental details, frost-laden pine needles glinting, the soft crunch of snow under his boots, and distant bird calls echoing through the valley. These small touches reinforce the contrast between the violence of the past and the serene, almost sacred calm of the present. Nearby, Aero adjusts his gear, preparing to leave. He glances back at Atami, their eyes meeting in a silent acknowledgement of the trials they endured together. There is an unspoken understanding between them: battles were fought, lives were risked, and a fragile victory was secured. The camera lingers on their handshake, brief but weighted with shared respect, before Aero disappears into the tree-line, leaving Atami alone with his memories and the home he rebuilt. Inside, Atami inspects each corner of the house. He runs his hand along the walls, remembering moments from his past: his mother cooking in the kitchen, his father fixing broken furniture, his sister laughing in the snow. Each room is a palimpsest of memory, where the old trauma and new hope coexist. He carefully places personal artifacts recovered from the ruins: a small wooden toy, a photograph, a family journal, each item a testament to resilience and the human need to preserve legacy. A sudden gust of wind rattles the windows, reminding the audience that the outside world remains harsh and unpredictable. Atami steps outside again, carrying a plank for the roof. As he works, a flock of birds takes flight from the nearby trees. The camera follows their ascent, drawing a parallel between freedom, survival, and transcendence. Atami's movements are deliberate and methodical, underscoring a theme central to the narrative: purposeful labor as healing. Later, he constructs a small memorial in the front yard using leftover timber, carving the initials of his family members. Each chisel strike resonates with emotion: grief, love, remembrance, and the silent promise that their lives are honored. Snowflakes land softly on the memorial, a visual metaphor for impermanence, yet the structure itself stands firm. Atami pauses, touching the memorial and whispering words we never hear, the moment heavy with personal ritual and catharsis. Aero's absence is soon filled by nature itself. A fox appears near the tree-line, cautiously observing Atami before disappearing. The sequence subtly suggests renewal and continuity: life persists despite violence, and the world continues beyond human conflicts. The camera captures Atami's silent observation of the creature, emphasizing his connection to the natural world and the broader cycle of life. As the day progresses, Atami prepares firewood and tends a small garden space, integrating life into the reconstructed home. These mundane yet intimate acts contrast sharply with the earlier brutal chase and battles, highlighting his return to humanity and normalcy. The narrative makes clear that true victory is not just survival or defeating enemies, but reclaiming one's life and dignity. A final reflection sequence shows Atami seated on the porch, gazing at the valley. The wind moves through the trees, carrying whispers of the past. Flashbacks of key moments, battles with Dragunov, the loss of his family, fleeting kindnesses from allies, merge seamlessly with present tranquility. These overlapping layers of memory and reality reinforce the narrative's emotional resonance and provide the audience with a contemplative closure. Night falls, and the house is illuminated by a soft, warm glow. Inside, Atami rests near the fireplace, occasionally glancing at the family artifacts he placed around the room. The camera captures the flickering flames reflecting on his stoic face, symbolizing resilience, warmth, and enduring memory amid the harsh, unforgiving landscape outside. The audience senses that while external conflicts have ended, the internal journey of reflection and healing continues. The final shot lingers on Atami stepping outside again, surveying the valley as a gentle snowfall begins. The camera pulls back slowly, revealing the full panorama: rebuilt home, rugged mountains, distant forests, a quiet, majestic reminder that survival, courage, and remembrance shape not only individual lives but the landscape of memory itself. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a lingering sense of closure, reflection, and quiet triumph. Upon release, Sisu 2, Road to Revenge received widespread critical acclaim, a testament to the careful balance it strikes between high-octane action and emotionally resonant storytelling. Critics praised the film for its ability to elevate the revenge thriller genre beyond simple spectacle, highlighting the depth of characterization, the authenticity of the historical setting, and the meticulous choreography of its action sequences. Jorma Tommela's portrayal of Atami Korpi was universally recognized as a standout performance, blending stoicism, vulnerability, and formidable physical prowess. Reviewers noted that Tommela's ability to convey emotion through subtle expressions, coupled with his convincingly rigorous performance in stunts and fight sequences, created a protagonist who felt both larger-than-life and profoundly human. Stephen Lang's depiction of Igor Dragunov was similarly praised for its layered approach, portraying a villain whose intelligence, strategic cunning, and ideological conviction elevated the conflict to more than a personal vendetta, reflecting broader post-war tensions. The interplay between hero and antagonist was described by critics as a narrative high point, with the tension between moral clarity and ruthless pragmatism resonating throughout the film. Audience reception mirrored critical praise, with viewers responding enthusiastically to both the action and the emotional stakes. Social media platforms were flooded with discussions highlighting favorite sequences, standout performances, and the thematic richness of the film. Many audience members emphasized how the realistic stunts, practical effects, and immersive cinematography heightened engagement, creating a visceral experience that few contemporary action films achieve. The film's combination of relentless physical action and quieter, reflective moments allowed viewers to connect with Atami Korpi on a personal level, investing emotionally in his journey and celebrating his resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. The engagement extended internationally, with fans of action cinema in Europe, North America, and Asia praising the film's universal appeal, noting that despite its Finnish setting and historical specificity, the themes of survival, revenge, and personal honor resonated broadly. From a box office perspective, Sisu 2 demonstrated strong commercial performance, benefiting from both critical acclaim and effective marketing. In Finland, the film achieved significant opening weekend attendance, surpassing projections and establishing itself as a domestic blockbuster. Internationally, the staggered release strategy proved effective, with strong ticket sales in key markets such as the United States, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Analysts highlighted the combination of familiar talent, striking visuals, and unique narrative as key drivers of success, noting that Sisu 2 attracted both fans of the original film and newcomers drawn by the intensity of the marketing campaign and the promise of an innovative action experience. The film's box office trajectory was further bolstered by positive word-of-mouth and critical endorsements, which contributed to sustained audience interest beyond the initial release window. Critical analysis frequently emphasized the film's technical accomplishments as a major factor in its reception. Cinematography, sound design, and editing were consistently singled out for their contribution to the film's immersive experience. The use of natural lighting, practical effects, and inventive camera angles was seen as elevating the visual storytelling, while the soundscape and musical scoring enhanced both the tension of action sequences and the emotional weight of character-driven scenes. Reviewers also praised Hellander's direction for its precision in blending narrative and spectacle, achieving a coherence rarely found in high-intensity action films. Critics noted that the deliberate pacing and integration of character reflection into the action sequences contributed to a satisfying balance, ensuring that audiences were not merely spectators of violence but participants in a story of moral and emotional significance. In addition to mainstream critical reception, specialized film forums and fan communities analyzed the narrative and thematic dimensions of Sisu 2. Discussions often centered on the film's exploration of post-war trauma, the ethical implications of revenge, and the representation of resilience in the face of destruction. These analyses highlighted how the film transcends genre conventions, using action as a lens to examine psychological and moral questions. Such discourse further enhanced the film's reputation, positioning it as both an entertainment event and a subject of thoughtful engagement among cinephiles and critics alike. Overall, Sisu 2, Road to Revenge succeeded in achieving a rare combination of critical acclaim, audience enthusiasm, and commercial success. Its strong performance across these dimensions reflects the careful integration of high-quality performances, innovative direction, immersive cinematography, meticulous production design, and a sophisticated marketing strategy. The film's ability to resonate on emotional, intellectual, and visceral levels contributed to its standing as a significant entry in contemporary action cinema, reinforcing the international profile of the Sisu franchise and demonstrating the potential for Finnish films to achieve global impact in the genre. Sisu, Road to Revenge is the 2025 sequel to the Finnish cult hit Sisu, 2022, directed and written by Jalmari Hellander. Following the legendary Atomi Korpi, this sequel delves deeper into the personal consequences of survival, vengeance, and the moral complexity of post-war Europe. While the first film established Korpi as nearly unstoppable, this installment explores his inner world, layering emotional depth over high-octane action sequences and intense physical confrontations. The film opens in 1946, in Soviet-occupied Karelia, a landscape scarred by war. Korpi, played by Jorma Tommila, returns to the ruins of his childhood home, a site that embodies both the tragedy of his past and the resilience of his character. This location serves as the symbolic and literal starting point for the film. Korpi painstakingly dismantles his home, salvaging each piece with meticulous care. This act is more than survival, it is a reclaiming of memory, identity, and purpose. The destruction of the old house, followed by the plan to rebuild, mirrors Korpi's internal struggle and the broader theme of reconstructing life from the ruins of war. Korpi's solitude is interrupted by Igor Dragunov, played by Stephen Lang, the Red Army commander responsible for Korpi's family's murder. Dragunov's presence escalates the stakes immediately, creating tension between personal vendetta and the wider political undertones of post-war Europe. Unlike the first film, where Korpi's conflict was primarily with the environment and opportunistic soldiers, the sequel personalizes the antagonist-protagonist dynamic. Dragunov is obsessive, strategic, and unrelenting, creating a palpable threat that drives the film's narrative. The narrative structure alternates between high-adrenaline action and introspective character moments. Korpi's journey across hostile terrain, from snow-covered forests to frozen rivers and abandoned villages, is both literal and metaphorical. These landscapes are filmed with careful cinematographic attention to natural lighting, wide-angle shots, and dynamic tracking sequences that immerse the audience in both the physical and emotional journey. Each terrain presents unique challenges. Icy rivers force improvised tactics, snow-laden forests conceal enemies, and derelict towns provide both shelter and hazards. The choreography of action sequences is precise, blending physical stunts with cinematic storytelling to highlight Korpi's tactical intelligence and resilience. The film's first major action sequence occurs shortly after Dragunov's reappearance. Korpi, driving a modified truck carrying salvaged wood from his home, is ambushed by Dragunov's soldiers. This chase sequence extends across icy roads and forest trails. Korpi uses both ingenuity and brute force, improvising traps from the truck's cargo and terrain elements. Cinematic techniques in this sequence include rapid intercutting to convey tension, handheld shots to create immediacy, and long tracking shots to emphasize the scale of pursuit. The sequence establishes the physical stakes and reinforces the film's thematic emphasis on persistence, resourcefulness, and the costs of survival. Korpi's internal struggle is highlighted through visual storytelling. Flashbacks interspersed with the chase sequences depict the murder of his family, moments from his youth, and his training in the resistance. These memories provide emotional context, illustrating the psychological weight behind every physical maneuver. The editing rhythm alternates between high-intensity pursuit and lingering, silent reflection, allowing the audience to absorb Korpi's grief and determination. Supporting characters enrich the narrative while emphasizing Korpi's isolation. Richard Brake's portrayal of a KGB officer represents bureaucratic and ideological pressure, showing that Dragunov is not acting purely from personal obsession but within a larger institutional framework. Local villagers, initially wary of Korpi, eventually provide temporary aid, illustrating moments of human connection amidst chaos. Each minor character contributes to the film's realism, highlighting the social dynamics of post-war regions and the varying human responses to conflict. The film's emotional apex occurs in a sequence where Korpi reaches a partially destroyed bridge that Dragunov has sabotaged to trap him. This scene merges physical danger with symbolic tension. The bridge represents the transition between Korpi's past and the potential for rebuilding. Korpi's navigation of the bridge, using both agility and clever improvisation, becomes a metaphor for overcoming the trauma that has dominated his life. Here, cinematography emphasizes verticality, using high-angle shots to capture peril, while close-ups reveal Korpi's concentration and resolve. A pivotal sequence in the middle of the film focuses on the dismantling and transportation of Korpi's house. Each plank, beam, and artifact he salvages becomes a narrative device. For instance, he discovers a childhood memento, a small wooden toy hidden beneath the floorboards, which triggers a memory montage. These quiet moments juxtapose against moments of violence, providing emotional texture and reinforcing the narrative's central theme: rebuilding is both literal and psychological. Production design plays a crucial role here, with realistic materials and practical effects enhancing authenticity. As the narrative progresses, Korpi engages Dragunov in increasingly brutal confrontations. These include hand-to-hand combat sequences set in abandoned warehouses, improvised weapon fights in snow-covered forests, and strategic ambushes using environmental traps. The choreography is designed to reflect Korpi's evolution from a survivor to a tactician. Each fight scene demonstrates both skill and ingenuity. The editing maintains continuity while emphasizing the stakes of each encounter. Slow-motion sequences are used sparingly, highlighting particularly dramatic moments of impact, while the majority of the film retains a raw, kinetic energy. A key thematic element emerges through Korpi's interactions with his environment. He manipulates terrain, weather, and natural obstacles to gain advantage, demonstrating the Finnish concept of Sisu, enduring, inventive, and resilient in the face of overwhelming odds. Helander intentionally contrasts these sequences with quieter moments, such as Korpi resting under a tree while staring at the sunset or quietly adjusting a salvaged beam. These moments underscore that survival requires both strength and reflection. The climax of the film takes place in an abandoned industrial complex where Dragunov sets a trap using Korpi's rebuilt house as bait. The confrontation is both physical and psychological. Korpi employs all learned tactics, using the house's structure to set counter-traps, leveraging the environment, and engaging in hand-to-hand combat with Dragunov. The sequence combines practical stunts with precise cinematography, tracking shots follow rapid movements, close-ups capture emotional intensity, and wide shots contextualize the scale of the confrontation. The fight culminates with Korpi's moral decision: he can exact total revenge or leave Dragunov alive. Choosing the former, the film emphasizes narrative closure while highlighting the weight of vengeance on Korpi's psyche. The film concludes with Korpi successfully reconstructing his house in a remote location. This sequence, largely devoid of dialogue, focuses on the symbolism of rebuilding. Cinematography emphasizes natural light, wide scenic shots, and the tactile details of construction, hammering nails, aligning beams, and placing salvaged mementos. This ending reinforces the duality of action and introspection: physical resilience and emotional endurance coexist. Korpi's journey demonstrates that true strength lies in perseverance, memory, and moral integrity. Production insights reveal the film's complexity. Principal photography spanned over 6 months, with challenging weather conditions in Estonia and Lapland. Stunt coordination required careful planning, particularly for sequences involving vehicles, snowy terrain, and hand-to-hand combat. The practical effects team constructed full-scale sets, including a fully dismantleable house and a partially destroyed bridge, enabling realistic interaction for the actors. Cinematographer Mika Orasma employed a combination of handheld cameras, drone shots, and Steadicam rigs to balance intimacy and scale. Hellander's direction emphasized storytelling through movement and visual cues rather than dialogue, creating a cinematic style that is immersive and emotionally resonant. Character arcs are intricately developed. Korpi evolves from a man driven solely by survival and vengeance to one capable of reflection and moral consideration. Dragunov, while primarily an antagonist, is given a backstory and motivations that contextualize his ruthlessness without excusing it. Secondary characters serve as mirrors and foils to Korpi, emphasizing themes of loyalty, betrayal, and the human cost of war. The interaction between these elements ensures a layered narrative that transcends conventional action tropes. The film's marketing highlighted both its intense action and emotional depth, with trailers focusing on Korpi's journey, the reconstruction of his home, and the relentless pursuit by Dragunov. Pre-release reviews praised the integration of practical effects, stunt work, and cinematography, alongside nuanced performances. Early screenings indicated strong audience engagement, particularly with sequences balancing visceral action and emotional stakes. Culturally, the film reflects post-World War II Finnish resilience and the concept of Sisu. The reconstruction of the house, combined with Korpi's unwavering pursuit of justice, exemplifies endurance in the face of both personal and societal devastation. By situating the story in historically contested regions, the film grounds its narrative in real geopolitical tensions, enriching the audience's understanding of the stakes and adding gravitas to Korpi's personal mission. In conclusion, Sisu, Road to Revenge represents an ambitious expansion of its predecessor. It balances high-octane action with introspective character study, integrates historical and cultural context, and demonstrates technical mastery in cinematography, practical effects, and stunt choreography. The film delivers a compelling narrative about survival, revenge, and rebuilding, underscoring the Finnish concept of Sisu as both a literal and philosophical force. Korpi's journey, from dismantling the ruins of his past to reconstructing both his home and identity, offers a cathartic and visually stunning conclusion while leaving open the potential for future exploration within the franchise. The film opens in the quiet pre-dawn light of northern Finland, a vast, snow-covered expanse stretching as far as the eye can see. The landscape is simultaneously beautiful and harsh, the whiteness of the snow broken only by skeletal trees, abandoned farmhouses, and remnants of war scattered across the terrain. Atami Korpi is first seen walking slowly through the snow, his heavy boots leaving crisp, deep impressions behind him. Each step is deliberate, echoing in the still air. The camera lingers on his face, weathered and determined, capturing the lines of grief and endurance that define him. This opening sequence establishes not only the physical environment but the emotional landscape of the protagonist, a man shaped by trauma, loss, and the unyielding drive to rebuild what was taken from him. Atami reaches the ruins of his family home, a structure half buried in snow and ice. Broken timbers jut out at odd angles, windows are shattered, and charred remnants of furniture scatter the interior. The camera moves slowly through the wreckage, giving the audience a sense of the destruction and the life that once thrived here. He kneels, brushing snow and debris from a fractured beam, murmuring under his breath, "We will rise again. I promise you that." The words are quiet, almost drowned by the wind, but they carry the weight of decades of grief and determination. Flashbacks briefly overlay the scene, the warmth of a family hearth, the laughter of children, the embrace of his parents. These moments are fleeting but powerful, giving the audience insight into the depth of Atami's motivation. Every act of rebuilding is infused with memory, turning the physical labor into an emotional and symbolic endeavor. As he begins salvaging materials, the first hints of danger emerge. Footsteps crunch faintly in the snow, distant but deliberate. Atami freezes, scanning the surrounding forest with practiced vigilance. The camera pans across the tree line, showing shadows flitting between trees, barely visible but ominous. He murmurs to himself, "They never stop," and his hands tighten around a hammer, an improvised weapon in addition to a tool. The tension is palpable, the audience senses that he is being watched, pursued by forces that will not relent. This subtle foreshadowing sets the stage for the eventual confrontation with Igor Dragunov's agents while emphasizing Atami's constant awareness and readiness. The first minor skirmish occurs when local opportunists, scavenging the remnants of war, attempt to steal some of Atami's salvaged materials. The encounter is tense but brief, demonstrating both his combat skills and strategic thinking. He uses environmental advantages, shifting snow, partially buried beams, and narrow passageways, to disarm and neutralize the intruders. One of the thieves lunges toward him with a crude knife, and Atami sidesteps, sending the man sprawling into a snowdrift. "You should have stayed home," he mutters dryly, a touch of dark humor breaking through the grim circumstances. This scene establishes not only his physical prowess but his pragmatism and ethical code. Violence is a means to an end, never gratuitous. The narrative then expands to introduce the looming presence of Dragunov. At first, his influence is subtle, traces of enemy patrols, overheard conversations, and the sight of organized search parties hint at a meticulous and relentless pursuer. The audience senses a growing threat before he even appears on screen. Atami navigates terrain with care, using snowdrifts to mask footprints and frozen streams to conceal movement. The camera alternates between wide shots of the harsh environment and tight close-ups of Atami's focused eyes, conveying both scale and tension. Every environmental element, ice, snow, wind, and shadows, becomes a narrative device, reflecting danger, opportunity, and the constant presence of the antagonist. Secondary characters begin to intersect with Atami's journey. A scene introduces a local hunter, an older man familiar with the land. The hunter speaks in hushed tones, "Korpi, the snow will betray you if you're not careful. The Soviets watch every path." This brief interaction grounds the story in local knowledge and historical reality, emphasizing the stakes of survival in post-war Finland. Atami listens carefully, nodding, but does not engage in unnecessary conversation. He respects the information but moves with his own plan, highlighting his independence and strategic mind. These moments of interaction deepen the narrative, showing that survival depends not only on skill but on understanding the social and environmental context of the journey. The first major chase sequence begins when a patrol discovers his trail. The snow becomes both ally and enemy, footprints reveal movement, but dense drifts and wooded areas allow Atami to disappear and reappear, creating tension and suspense. He uses his knowledge of the terrain to set rudimentary traps, hidden pits, sharpened stakes, and camouflaged barriers, turning the environment into a strategic weapon. Each trap is shown in meticulous detail, the placement of stakes, the tension of ropes, the calculation of angles and timing. When the patrol encounters the first trap, the scene explodes in kinetic energy. A soldier tumbles into a pit, snow and debris flying, while others are momentarily stalled, giving Atami time to maneuver to a safer position. The camera captures both the chaos and the calculated precision of his actions, emphasizing intelligence and ingenuity alongside physical skill. During quieter moments between conflicts, the film emphasizes Atami's internal life. He pauses atop a snow-covered hill, looking out over the landscape, and murmurs, "Every step is for them, every breath is for memory." These moments of reflection, juxtaposed with imminent danger, underscore the film's central themes, that survival is intertwined with purpose, grief is a guiding force rather than a weakness, and moral conviction informs every action. Flashbacks reinforce this emotional dimension, showing fragments of his family's life, moments of laughter and warmth that contrast with the cold, desolate present. These sequences are visually soft, using warm light and gentle motion, creating a counterpoint to the harsh, kinetic sequences of pursuit and combat. As the first half of the film progresses, Atami encounters increasingly sophisticated opposition. Dragunov's agents employ organized search patterns, surveillance, and knowledge of terrain, forcing him to adapt constantly. The tension is amplified through cinematic techniques. Tight tracking shots follow his movement through forests, sudden cuts to hidden observers reveal the immediacy of threat, and ambient sound, cracking ice, snapping branches, distant voices, heighten suspense. Each sequence reinforces his ingenuity, resilience, and moral clarity, showing the audience that his survival depends not only on strength but on intelligence, strategy, and ethical consistency. Dialogue is sparing but meaningful during these confrontations. A pursuing soldier, frustrated after failing to capture him, mutters to a companion, "He's a ghost, how can one man move like this?" The companion shrugs, fear and awe evident in his expression. These moments highlight the legend-like quality of Atami, establishing him as a figure whose skill and determination are almost mythical, reinforcing the film's central theme of perseverance. Meanwhile, Dragunov's presence looms like a shadow, implied through intelligence reports, intercepted messages, and ominous commentary, maintaining tension without direct confrontation. By the midpoint, the audience has witnessed a series of escalating challenges that test Atami's skills, resilience, and moral code. He has neutralized threats with precision, navigated treacherous terrain, and demonstrated a blend of tactical brilliance and emotional depth. The first half of the film establishes the stakes, builds tension, and sets the stage for the larger confrontations to come, both with Dragunov and the forces of nature, history, and memory that shape his journey. As the snow thickens, Atami ventures toward the nearby forest to scout for additional resources. The trees are tall and dense, their branches heavy with snow, creating a natural tunnel that both conceals and challenges him. He moves silently, boots sinking slightly into the powdery snow. The camera lingers on each careful step, emphasizing his heightened awareness and survival instincts. Atami pauses, sensing a faint movement in the distance, a group of small animals, likely deer, moving cautiously through the underbrush. This brief encounter underscores his connection to the natural world and the constant rhythm of life beyond human conflicts. Suddenly, a small avalanche is triggered by a distant rockslide. Snow tumbles down the slope in a rushing cascade. Atami reacts instinctively, leaping aside and finding cover behind a fallen tree trunk. The scene is shot with dynamic camera angles, slow-motion snow and debris hurtling through the air, close-ups of Atami's tense expression, and wide shots showing the sheer scale of the avalanche. He emerges unscathed, a slight exhalation marking both relief and mastery over the hostile environment. Back at the valley, Atami continues reconstructing smaller outbuildings to support the main home. He constructs a smokehouse and storage shed, carefully planning each structure to maximize efficiency while maintaining harmony with the surrounding landscape. Each plank and nail reflects both practical necessity and emotional symbolism. The buildings are functional, but they also honor his family's memory. As he works, the camera focuses on close-up details, wood grain, gloved hands gripping tools, and the rhythmic repetition of labor, reinforcing the theme that restoration is both physical and spiritual. One morning, Atami spots smoke rising in the distance from a small settlement. Curious but cautious, he approaches and finds travelers trapped by the snow, unable to continue their journey. Though initially wary, Atami decides to assist them, showing his compassion and moral integrity. He guides them through the treacherous snow paths, clearing obstacles and ensuring their safety. This sequence emphasizes that even in a narrative dominated by vengeance and violence, acts of humanity and selflessness remain central to Atami's character. Later, Atami returns to the reconstructed home to find a surviving mercenary observing from the tree line. This man, shaken but unarmed, freezes when he sees Atami. The confrontation is tense yet restrained. Atami does not immediately attack. He studies the man silently, weighing justice, vengeance, and morality. The sequence is quiet but charged with suspense, illustrating that true strength includes restraint and discernment. Eventually, the mercenary flees, leaving Atami unscathed. This encounter reinforces the narrative's moral dimension: survival does not require senseless cruelty. As dusk approaches, Atami sits atop a ridge near the home, gazing at the sun dipping behind the mountains. The snow casts long shadows, painting the valley in shades of gold and silver. Flashbacks interweave seamlessly, his family gathering by the fireplace, laughter echoing in the snow, and moments of wartime terror. The camera lingers on Atami's face, capturing the subtle shifts between grief, determination, and reflective peace. This meditation reinforces the emotional depth of his journey and the enduring importance of memory. A sudden storm begins to sweep through the valley, winds gusting and snowflakes thickening into blinding sheets. Atami moves with practiced efficiency, securing the structures he has rebuilt and ensuring that the small memorial he crafted remains intact. The storm becomes a narrative device, symbolizing both the unpredictability of life and the ongoing challenges that must be faced, even after the most intense battles have been fought. The cinematography highlights swirling snow, bending trees, and the contrast between human fragility and the relentless power of nature. During the storm, he discovers a fallen tree blocking the path to a vital supply area. Without hesitation, Atami uses his strength, tools, and ingenuity to clear the obstruction, turning a potentially dangerous setback into a demonstration of resilience. The camera alternates between close-ups of straining muscles and wide shots of the imposing tree trunk, highlighting both the scale of the challenge and his extraordinary perseverance. This scene reinforces the theme that true survival requires continuous effort, adaptability, and courage. As night descends, the storm subsides, leaving the valley blanketed in fresh, untouched snow. Atami lights a small fire outside, the flickering light casting warm shadows across his face. He reflects silently on his journey, the battles fought, the losses endured, and the home rebuilt. The camera pans over the valley, showing the reconstructed structures and distant mountains, a visual representation of achievement, remembrance, and hope. In the final sequences of this expanded section, Atami walks through the newly restored home one last time. He carefully arranges items, checks the structural integrity of walls and roofs, and pauses to touch the memorial in the front yard. Each act, no matter how small, signifies the completion of a chapter in his life, a chapter defined by loss, perseverance, and the reclamation of dignity. The narrative emphasizes that while vengeance may have motivated the journey, healing, restoration, and memory define its ultimate meaning. Sisu 2, Road to Revenge is as much a meditation on human resilience and moral complexity as it is a high-intensity action film. One of its most prominent themes is the enduring impact of war on individuals and communities. The narrative situates Atami Korpi's personal journey within the broader context of post-World War II Finland, a nation struggling to rebuild amidst political uncertainty, economic hardship, and the lingering scars of conflict. The film repeatedly underscores how trauma is both personal and collective. Atami's quest for vengeance mirrors the struggles of countless civilians and soldiers navigating a world destabilized by violence. Hellander's storytelling emphasizes that the consequences of war extend far beyond the battlefield, shaping social dynamics, ethical choices, and the very fabric of ordinary life. The use of devastated landscapes, abandoned villages, and snowbound forests serves as a visual metaphor for the psychological and societal desolation left in the wake of destruction, reinforcing the film's thematic resonance. Revenge and justice form the ethical core of the film, explored through the morally complex decisions faced by Atami and his adversaries. Unlike conventional action thrillers, where revenge is often presented simplistically, Sisu 2 examines its emotional and psychological consequences. Each act of retaliation carries weight, challenging the protagonist, and by extension, the audience, to consider the line between retribution and righteousness. The film portrays Atami as a character who is unflinchingly committed to confronting evil yet deeply aware of the cost his actions impose upon himself and others. This balance between moral clarity and ambiguity is further accentuated through the character of Igor Dragunov, whose ideological rigidity and personal vendettas mirror, in a darkly distorted form, the same resilience and determination that define Atami. This thematic interplay creates a rich narrative tension that elevates the film beyond the conventions of the revenge genre, turning action sequences into moral and philosophical examinations. Symbolism permeates the film's visual and narrative design. The reconstruction of Atami's family home, for example, represents not only the literal rebuilding of what was destroyed but also the restoration of identity, memory, and agency. Snow-covered landscapes, icy rivers, and desolate forests symbolize both the harshness of the external world and the internal struggles of the characters. Fire, explosions, and collapsing structures often serve as visual markers of the destructive forces at play, contrasting with moments of sunlight, open skies, or quiet reflection, which signal hope, resilience, and renewal. These symbolic elements are carefully interwoven with the narrative, ensuring that visual storytelling reinforces thematic concerns and emotional arcs. Action, therefore, is not merely spectacle, it is a narrative tool that communicates psychological states, ethical dilemmas, and the transformative power of perseverance. The historical context of post-war Finland is integral to the story's depth. The film portrays a country in flux, dealing with the aftermath of German occupation, Soviet influence, and the challenges of rebuilding a fractured society. These political and social undercurrents are subtly woven into the narrative through character interactions, secondary plots, and the depiction of civilian life. The KGB officer's presence, for instance, is not only a source of narrative tension but also a representation of the geopolitical pressures shaping the environment in which Atami operates. By grounding the story in this historical milieu, Helander elevates the stakes of individual action, illustrating how personal struggles are inextricably linked to broader societal forces. This approach gives the film both historical authenticity and universal relevance, appealing to audiences interested in character-driven stories set against real-world events. Comparisons with the first Sisu film illuminate the evolution of both narrative and cinematic approach in the sequel. While the original focused heavily on establishing Atami Korpi's character, his survival skills, and the mythic quality of his vengeance, Sisu 2 expands the universe both geographically and emotionally. The sequel explores new dimensions of the protagonist's psyche, delves deeper into secondary characters, and situates the narrative within a more expansive historical and geopolitical context. Cinematically, the sequel demonstrates more ambitious set pieces, complex stunt choreography, and a heightened emphasis on visual storytelling. Critics and audiences alike have noted that while the first film introduced viewers to the raw intensity and moral clarity of its protagonist, the sequel offers a richer tapestry of narrative depth, ethical exploration, and cinematic sophistication. The result is a film that honors the essence of the original while confidently expanding its scope, thematic complexity, and emotional resonance. The emotional resonance of Sisu 2 is further enhanced by its exploration of endurance, courage, and human agency. Atami's perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds embodies the Finnish concept of Sisu, which connotes determination, grit, and resilience in the face of adversity. This thematic through-line is consistently reinforced throughout the film, from his resourcefulness during combat to his reflective moments rebuilding his home. The narrative emphasizes that heroism is not simply a matter of physical strength but of moral clarity, resilience, and strategic thinking. The film's emotional power lies in its ability to marry these human qualities to visually spectacular action, ensuring that audiences are invested not just in the outcome of battles but in the enduring journey of the characters themselves. The second half begins with Atami emerging from a dense forest into a barren, snow-swept valley. The landscape is stark and unforgiving, the horizon a sharp line against a steel-gray sky. The terrain itself is now an adversary, with deep snowdrifts, hidden ice patches, and exposed ridges offering both danger and opportunity. Every step is measured, the camera focuses on the imprint of his boots in the snow, emphasizing isolation and vulnerability. He pauses atop a small rise, scanning the valley below, calculating the movements of Dragunov's patrols with meticulous precision. A low, distant whistle of the wind merges with the faint crunch of snow, a subtle auditory cue of the impending conflict. Atami's internal monologue reflects both strategy and emotion. Every path is a choice, every shadow hides intent. I must be faster, sharper, wiser. These words convey the weight of responsibility he carries, not just for survival, but for the moral imperative that drives his journey. Flashbacks intercut the sequence, his siblings building a snowman, his mother preparing a meal, his father instructing him in the art of resilience. These images remind the audience that every tactical decision is motivated by love, memory, and the pursuit of justice. The first major encounter in this sequence occurs as Atami descends into a partially frozen ravine. Dragunov's forces, having anticipated movement along obvious paths, have set a series of ambushes. The scene is choreographed with a focus on suspense, shadows flit among the ridges, distant boots crunch through snow, and the glint of rifles reflects the pale sunlight. Atami moves deliberately, using broken branches and snow mounds to conceal his approach. When the enemy triggers his first trap, a partially concealed pit reinforced with snow and ice, the chaos is cinematic. Soldiers tumble into the opening, their cries echoing against the frozen rock walls, while Atami silently moves to a higher vantage point, observing and preparing for the next phase of engagement. Dialogue is minimal but precise. One soldier shouts, "Where is he? How does he know every move we make?" Another, panicked, replies, "It's like he can read the snow itself, he's not human." These lines reinforce Atami's almost legendary status, highlighting his ingenuity and adaptability, as well as the psychological impact on his pursuers. Meanwhile, Dragunov's presence is felt indirectly, through intercepted radio messages, strategic repositioning, and the subtle manipulation of his forces. His cold, calculating voice is heard over a radio, "Keep him moving, drive him into the open. He cannot hide forever." This underscores the mental duel that is central to the narrative, a battle of wits, morality, and endurance. Atami's ingenuity is further demonstrated in a sequence involving a frozen river crossing. The ice is treacherous, cracking unpredictably under weight. He calculates precise footing, testing the surface with a stick before proceeding. When pursuing soldiers follow, unaware of the weak ice beneath them, the river becomes a deadly obstacle. A sequence of explosions, ice giving way, and flailing limbs conveys both realism and cinematic intensity. The camera alternates between wide shots capturing scale and intimate close-ups of fear, determination, and survival. Sound design emphasizes cracking ice, rushing water, and the distant wind, immersing the audience in the danger and immediacy of the moment. During quieter intervals, Atami pauses to reflect on his journey. Kneeling in the snow, he whispers, "I carry them with me. Their memory is my strength." The narrative emphasizes that his resilience is not only physical but moral and emotional. These interludes contrast sharply with intense action sequences, creating rhythm and tension while deepening audience engagement. Flashbacks reinforce this internal motivation, the warmth of family, moments of laughter and guidance, and the unbroken thread of purpose that defines him. Every step he takes, every trap he sets, and every confrontation he faces is anchored in these memories, reinforcing thematic depth. The pursuit sequences escalate as Dragunov adapts. Soldiers employ flanking maneuvers, coordinated ambushes, and psychological intimidation. Atami responds with ingenuity, creating false trails in the snow, using decoys, and exploiting environmental hazards. In one scene, he triggers a landslide to block reinforcements, using timing and understanding of the terrain to maximum effect. The sequence is intercut with close-ups of Dragunov's frustration, emphasizing the intellectual duel between protagonist and antagonist. Each maneuver demonstrates Atami's mastery of both physical and mental strategy, highlighting the central theme of Sisu, resilience, resourcefulness, and unyielding determination. Supporting characters reappear strategically. A local villager warns him of a hidden patrol, whispering, "They will surround you if you take the valley path." Only the ridge is safe. Atami nods silently, acknowledging the assistance but proceeding according to his own plan. These brief interactions reinforce community and interconnectedness, illustrating that survival is informed not only by skill but by relationships, trust, and shared knowledge. Conversely, hostile collaborators test Atami's ethical principles, offering opportunities for moral choices that underscore his integrity, restraining unnecessary violence, protecting innocence, and maintaining focus on purpose rather than vengeance. The tension builds toward the penultimate sequence, the approach to the final battleground. Atami navigates a snow-covered ridge overlooking Dragunov's temporary command post. The camera emphasizes height and exposure, highlighting both vulnerability and tactical advantage. Every detail is meticulously staged, snow drifting over footprints, distant figures observing from lower terrain, and the subtle sound of wind masking movement. Atami sets a series of precise traps and decoys, anticipating enemy reactions, while his internal monologue underscores focus and resolve. One final step. One final test. I will not falter. As he engages Dragunov's forces in this climactic prelude, the choreography reaches peak intensity. Soldiers are neutralized with calculated efficiency, environmental hazards exploited to maximum effect, and suspense maintained through pacing, sound, and visual composition. The narrative emphasizes that Atami's victories are not merely physical, they are strategic, moral, and psychological. The tension escalates as Dragunov himself enters the field, setting the stage for the ultimate confrontation, a duel that will test skill, endurance, morality, and emotional resolve. Atami rises before dawn the next morning, the valley cloaked in a heavy, silent fog. The snow glistens faintly under the pre-sunlight, and the air is crisp enough to sting exposed skin. He steps outside, boots crunching through the snow, carrying tools and supplies for another day of labor. The camera captures the subtle interplay of light and shadow across the landscape, highlighting both its beauty and its inherent danger. Each step is deliberate, each breath measured, a visual metaphor for his careful navigation between survival and reflection. While collecting firewood near the tree line, Atami encounters a hidden crevasse partially covered with snow, a hazard invisible until the moment it could have trapped him. He halts, assessing the gap with a practiced eye, and uses fallen branches and ropes to create a safe crossing. The sequence is tense, with close-ups of his hands testing the fragile surface, his face taut with concentration, and wide shots emphasizing the deadly drop below. This moment underscores his survival instinct and tactical intelligence, skills honed through years of hardship. As he moves deeper into the forest, a series of rapid flashbacks interweave seamlessly with his present actions. Scenes from his childhood show him sledding with his sister, learning how to chop wood from his father, and secretly sneaking treats from his mother's pantry. Later flashbacks depict the wartime chaos, soldiers storming homes, civilians fleeing, and the moment he witnessed the brutal loss of his family. These memories blend with his current tasks, clearing snow, transporting planks, reminding the audience that his every action is rooted in both trauma and love. While surveying the forest for additional timber, Atami notices faint signs of movement, small footprints in the snow, the subtle snap of a branch. Initially tense, he realizes these are wild animals, a family of foxes moving through the underbrush. He pauses, observing their careful movements. The camera captures their alertness and adaptability, creating a parallel to Atami's own survival instincts. Their brief presence reinforces the theme that life persists even in the harshest conditions, mirroring his own journey of resilience. Later, he returns to the home and begins constructing a water collection system using hollowed logs and salvaged materials. Each movement is meticulous, showing both technical skill and symbolic intent. Life must continue, not merely survive. The sequence emphasizes small acts of restoration as equally heroic as the large-scale battles he faced. Close-ups highlight his hands carving grooves in the wood, the gentle trickle of collected water, and the interplay of light through icicles hanging from the structure. A sudden storm sweeps through the valley, winds howling, snow blowing horizontally in blinding sheets. Atami secures the structures he has built, tying down roofs and bracing walls. The camera shifts between wide shots of the storm-ravaged valley and tight shots of his focused expression, emphasizing the ongoing struggle against both nature and memory. The storm functions as both literal and symbolic adversity, reinforcing that his path to restoration is never linear or easy. Amid the storm, he discovers a fallen tree blocking a crucial pathway to a supply depot. Without hesitation, he uses ropes, levers, and sheer force to move the obstacle. The scene alternates between close-ups of strained muscles, hands gripping ropes, and wide shots showing the massive trunk against the harsh landscape. This act reinforces Atami's resilience and physical strength while subtly reflecting his determination to overcome any barrier in pursuit of survival and restoration. During the storm's lull, Atami tends the small memorial outside the home, brushing snow from carved initials and smoothing the surface of the timber. The camera lingers on his face, showing a mixture of grief, reverence, and quiet satisfaction. This quiet ritual underscores the emotional stakes of the narrative. Vengeance may have driven his journey, but memory, respect, and honor define its meaning. Later, a brief encounter with a wandering traveler adds another layer to the story. The traveler, lost and shivering, is hesitant at first, but Atami guides him to the shelter of the rebuilt home. Their interaction is minimal in dialogue but heavy with subtext. The traveler represents innocence and the ongoing human struggle, while Atami's actions demonstrate empathy, wisdom, and the continuation of moral integrity. This small subplot reinforces that heroism is not only measured in combat but also in acts of kindness and guidance. As night falls, Atami lights a fire outside, the flickering flames reflecting in the windows of the reconstructed home. He gazes at the valley, snow-covered trees, and distant mountains, lost in thought. Flashbacks of family, battles, and fleeting moments of joy intermingle with present serenity. The camera holds on these overlapping memories, emphasizing the delicate balance between past trauma and current peace, a reminder that true healing involves both reflection and action. The sequence closes with Atami lying on the porch under a star-filled sky, snow falling gently around him. The wind carries faint echoes of the forest and wildlife. The camera pans out slowly, capturing the rebuilt home, the valley, and the encompassing wilderness. This final visual reinforces the film's thematic core: resilience, perseverance, and the enduring power of human will, the essence of Sisu.